Have you ever wondered how to change operational culture? Do you have situations in your business, in your organization, or in your family that are causing problems? In this episode of Socks and Soul, we learn the way we treat people is a direct reflection on how they will treat others. My guest today is organizational guru, successful businessman, and good friend Rodger Pickett. Let's go. Welcome to the Socks and Soul podcast. This is the very first episode. I have today with me somebody that's really special and important to me. He has been my mentor, my father-in-law, my spiritual advisor, my bishop, and probably most importantly, one of my dearest friends for a really long time. Somebody who I have looked up to ever since I've known him. Somebody who I go to for advice, who has great business acumen, is probably one of the fastest analytics I've ever met. And I don't say that lightly. So this is my friend and father-in-law, Rodger Pickett. Rodger, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome, Kelly. Thanks for inviting me.
You came a long way today to get here.
Actually, about 700 miles?
That's amazing that you would do that for me.
You're welcome.
That's just the kind of guy you are. So, Rodger, this podcast is all about telling great stories, particularly in the business realm, about people who have taken big risks to make exciting things happen. And I'm really interested in, you have a really long, exciting story, and we don't have time to tell the whole thing, unfortunately. But the part that I want to talk about is you were working for an auto glass company in Seattle called Novus Windshield Repair, Novus Glass.
Novus Windshield Repair Company.
Novus Windshield Repair Company. And you were an instrumental part in building that thing to a really successful company. There was some turmoil with the business owner, and you had an opportunity to leave there. You were being recruited by Dave and Cindy Rowe out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who had a very small glass operation, 2 shops. You guys were familiar with each other, and they wanted you to come do to their company what you had done with Bill Batley in Seattle. And that was a big deal for you and your family at the time.
Yeah, that was a big deal, especially for the most important member of the family. That was Jean, because it involved leaving Seattle, and that was her hometown, and she loved Seattle.
She grew up in Seattle. Her family was there.
Mm-hmm.
And
her mother was there.
Most importantly, her mother was there.
And not from the standpoint of what normal people would think about mother-daughter relationships. She was like her mother's best friend. And I don't know if her mother even had any other really best friends. So she was not only she was concerned about leaving as well as sad about leaving.
So tell me about the decision-making process, because and we don't have to talk about specific numbers, but the numbers matter when we talk to business owners and the decisions they make in terms of, I'm making this much and I'm going to go take this big risk to basically run this company. And the potential, we always love the potential, but what did it look like in terms of, I'm going to go from what I'm making here to here with the hopes of getting higher than that? And how did you make that decision? What were the things that came into that, and how risky of a decision did that end up being?
Well, I'm glad we're in this setting, because in normal business settings, this doesn't work real well. When I say things like, I'm a real spiritual guy, and the first thing that happened was I was really peaceful about making a move to Pennsylvania. So A, that's the beginning, right? B is the process of converting, if you will, a wife and others in the family to think that this is a good idea. Now, it was a fun opportunity for a guy who liked to be on the building side of businesses. Like, status quo drives me nuts.
So you're not the guy who cares about, this is my business card and it says owner on it, or chief executive officer, or,
No.
That's not your thing.
No, I'm the guy who likes to think, wow, that's a good idea. How about let's try and put that into practice? And I'm involved with somebody who appreciates my ideas, and we try it,
And this is to this point, it fits so well with your personality because you are the analytics guy. You are the guy who can look at a situation and, and say, no, these are the pieces that aren't working. This is how we can make it better. And that's what gets you excited.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think I evolved because, I married a really creative woman, an artist, right? And I felt uncreative, right? So maybe that's why I leaned more towards just being able to look at a situation, assess the situation, and say this situation could be better if, right? And so as that progressed, right, particularly as in Pennsylvania, we were there for 16 years. And so after several years in Pennsylvania and after being real interested in kind of putting systems in place for a lot of different reasons, but in any case, like you say, kind of more analytical stuff, then I started really enjoying the creative side, particularly as the other partners really backed away from operational issues and stuff. Then I really got into commercials and scripting and, all that kind of stuff.
So tell us about the state. So you went from when you were in Seattle, you guys went from like one or two little repair shops to having 14. So, this is, borderline mid-sized business, pretty profitable operation. And then
never seen anything like it in my life.
Okay. Very fun stuff. I mean, it's business, business dream.
I'll just throw out one number for you.
Yes, please do.
30 net.
30 net. And
that was our margin.
And for our non-business acumen guys, what does that mean?
That means that a lot of people look at you and say, wow, what kind of volume do you do? And you say, we do about 200,000 or 2 million a year, right? And they say, oh, like that. But they don't realize that, the owner is taking home 600 grand a year on 200,000.
Right, sure.
So that was kind of the really fun part. And it actually was fun to realize that this is, that this guy, for example, and don't get me wrong, he compensated me very well. Okay. And in fact, the year he called and said, please come and join us here in Seattle, I think maybe he made, I don't know, $25,000 or $30,000 a year. I'm certain that he paid me more to come than he was making himself.
It's a smart move on his part.
Well, he's the true entrepreneur. He's the guy who risks everything because he really has this vision, right? Yeah. So he did that. And like I say, in 5 years, he netted $1 million himself. So it was an amazing business, an amazing model. I'd love to see somebody try it again. But in any case, we went to a very different model in Pennsylvania.
So what was the state of affairs when you arrived in Harrisburg?
Well, fun. Because, I went to graduate school and got my MBA, right?
Of course.
And so you take all of these classes, coursework at MBA that, I don't know, represents to you that this is the real world, right? And these are the questions that you should ask if you're going to go get involved with somebody. And I asked all those questions and all the answers were exactly right. And I thought, this is perfect.
This story has a great ending.
Among those questions, for example, was, how do you treat your employees? Oh, we love our employees, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know, the second or third day that I was there, they had a mandatory meeting for the managers. Dave, my partner, got up actually on a countertop so that he was like looking down on all these managers and he was just like reading off the list of everything they needed to do. And then it was like meeting over. And I just thought, oh man, what have I gotten
See,
into?
Rodger, see how good we treat these people?
Oh, no. Okay. Now, to be fair, right after that, we all went to dinner at a kind of a sketchy restaurant, but everybody liked it. And then they said, see, we treat everybody so nice. And I kind of said that, that's not exactly my idea. And then one day, not too long into it, maybe a month into it, right? Dave went out. So we had a very small office complex inside of kind of the marquee shop, I guess, the biggest shop at the time in Harrisburg. And he had to actually pass through I'm going to call it a cubby office. He had a door, and he would open his door, go through my office, open my office door, and go out into the reception area for the shop, right? And he had done that, and he was out there with the manager of the shop, and literally they were screaming at each other. Screaming. He comes back in, closes my door, and he's headed towards the door to his office. And I said, Dave, hold on just for a minute. And he said, yeah, what do you want? Like, he's like unmoved by this.
He's totally oblivious.
There were customers out there. Okay. He says, yeah, what do you want? And then I said, it's not too late. And he said, too late for what? And I said, too late for me to go back to Seattle.
And he was like, what do you mean?
Exactly.
He had no idea.
Exactly. And so this was kind of the beginning of how the relationship built, as I said to him, look, I can't tolerate that. Seriously, if that ever happens again, I'm not going to be with you. Right. But he had all kinds of stuff to teach me too.
Of course.
It was just amazing how his feelings about what could work, were so great. And at the same time, how these are guys, okay. One other thing I'll tell you about them. I got there, like they ask about, how do you work and how's this and that and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I realized in the first week or so, they were coming into work at 6:30 in the morning. They were asking their salespeople to arrive at 7 o'clock for their daily briefing, which was one-on-one. Then the salespeople had to sit for an hour before they could go do anything because
nobody was open.
Exactly, nobody was open that they could go see. So, I said to them, "Hey, listen, you should probably know something." And they said, "What's that?" And I said, "I don't work these hours. Because I got other things in my life that are more important than this job."
They loved this.
Oh, this was a little tough, right? This was a little rough. And they said, well, what hours do you work? And I said, I don't know, 8, 9 to 4:30, 5, whatever it takes. But it doesn't take this. And they said, oh, banker's hours. And I said, well, call it what you want, but I presume you wanted me to come here because of my past success. That's how I was successful there. They accepted that. People ask me later, what was your biggest success in this company, which we built from, I don't know, $500,000 or $600,000 a year to $10 million a year. Wow. To finally selling the company to an international business. And people ask me, what was your biggest success?
Getting Dave and Cindy not to show up at 6:30 a.m.
No. Oh. But I'll tell you what it was. It's close to that. Getting Dave and Cindy to go on a 2-week vacation and not call home while they were there.
Yeah, sure.
They were so completely connected. I'd sit them down once, for example, and just say to them, hey, if we're going to expand, okay, you can't personally be responsible for buying the toilet paper in each of the shops. Managers have to do something. You have to trust them to do it, right? This is really, and that's typical. And this is for a small family-owned business.
And this is why they brought you in, because you were the expansion guy.
Yes.
And they were the quintessential, totally hands-on business owners. And they clearly knew, or were willing to be taught how to say, okay, we can either run this business or we can own this business.
In a moment of objectivity, they said, it would be good to have Rodger here, right? Then Rodger came, and believe me, there were plenty of moments where they wondered about that. It wasn't as bad as with Bill, who on the day after I arrived, as we were visiting the shops, there were like 4 of them when I got there, and we were just driving around. And during that drive, he said, I don't really know why I want you to be here. It was really assuring after moving the family from California up to Seattle.
It made you feel great about what you had just done.
So it wasn't like that, but man, it was so great because there was real open, energized communication. You were there. You've seen some of the, we would just throw it all out there, and I felt like anybody felt like they could give input. And if it was good input, we would look into anything.
I will say, so I got my degree in marketing communications with emphasis in business management. And then I came to Cindy Rowe Auto Glass to do my internship for 4 months, which was a completely nepotistic move. And I was so grateful for it. And you came into me at some point towards the end of that. Maybe it was the beginning. It might have been the first day, actually. And you said to me, I got you here. Now it's up to you. And you don't have to convince me that you're worth being here. And I was amazed the 4 years that I had the opportunity to spend there. It was remarkable to me how much you and Dave and Cindy and Kirk and Brian were all willing to listen to a 24-year-old's business ideas. And I was a spirited 24-year-old, you know, and I felt right at home with this group of people who listened and were more interested in the quality of the ideas than the source of it.
And I think you were just an example of hopefully everybody in the company.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, one of the very earliest things that I did there was just go around to all of the stores, sit down with all of the managers and the guys and just talk. Just say, hey, I'm here. How do you like it here? And, you know, and after going around one time, there were two very specific things that came up almost everywhere. One of those was, yeah, you know what? Like, if we're really busy, then we have forced overtime. We have to stay and do it. But if we're not busy, we just get sent home without pay. That was number one, right?
Yep.
Which, remember, Dave came out of the department store industry, and I think that was very sort of standard staffing practices back in the day. And then the other thing was, and our health insurance stinks. And Dave and Cindy had a very close friend who sold insurance. And sold them this policy that he got huge commissions on, I'm sure, and that, you know, didn't cover them at all, except, and when I told Dave about it, what? It has like a $2 million lifetime maximum, right? Anyway, he thought that was a great thing. And so I pointed out these two things, and that's where we started, right? And he didn't agree with either one of those things, but you talk about listening, he listened to me, right? So it was sort of a top-down thing, right?
Yeah.
If he hadn't been willing to listen to me, I don't think my desires to have other people talk to me so I could listen to them, that wouldn't have worked.
Right. You would have just said, look, guys, you can bark at me all you want.
But it's
the guy who's the majority owner, he just shoots all our ideas down.
So it only took about, I want to say 3 months. This is just stunning when you think about this in any kind of business setting, right? But I think it only took about 3 months, and we had guaranteed 40-hour work weeks. Okay. And we had a new insurance policy that had a $5 copay.
Oh, wow.
Because I just said to him, do you want your guys? Now, and this was another thing, right? Because strategically, I came to him, I said, we want family guys. We want guys who are more interested in security than an extra $1 an hour, right? And these are the kind of guys who can talk to our customers and make them feel safe and warm and comfortable coming in for something to be done to their car, which is not a real easy thing, right? So anyway, we knew we wanted those kinds of guys, and that's why. Do you want them sitting at home with a kid with 101 fever waiting to say, well, if he gets to 102, I'll take him in because it's going to cost me $50, right? No. You want him to say, man, my kid's got a fever. I'm going in. It's $5. I'm going in.
Yep.
Right.
That's the guy you want working for you on the front line.
And so he was willing to accept that expense. That was an extra expense, every single dollar. And I was getting paid. True, a large part of my compensation was based on the profitability of the company, but I still got paid.
Right.
Every dollar we spent came out of his pocket.
Right.
Okay. So when I came to him and I said, we'll all be better off in the end if we pay more for insurance, that money came out of his pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyway.
That's man, what great lessons there about learning and listening and being part of a team to make, ideas and dreams, come true. What is the hardest thing, the hardest decision? Sorry to put you on the spot here, but what would you say were some of the hardest, things that you had to deal with in the new adventure, going to Harrisburg What was the hardest part of that for you, would you say?
Let me go back and start at business school. You're a young guy. You're in this setting that was specifically designed for you to argue with everybody else. It was all case study oriented and all that kind of stuff, right? Although you did work together with a study group. We were mandated to be in a study group, and those became very important, and you learned some of the give and take there. Uh-huh. But you come out and you're just young. You're inexperienced. You get into a business setting in a management position right off the bat, mm-hmm. right? And you got a lot to learn. And so here's one of the things I had to learn real early, right? It was in Seattle. We had a shop manager. She was female. She was a single mother. Okay. And I found out about the second week of November that she was stealing from the company. So I made a decision. Now, I'd already by that time decided, look, it doesn't matter if things are going good or things are going bad. You recruit good employees, knowing things are going to get better, or you get rid of bad employees. Even if you're too busy to do it, you still get rid of them, because you just have to operate that way. You can't let the way the business is going impede those decisions, right? Because they're either right or they're wrong. It's like drives me crazy when the economy turns down and the first things businesses do is get rid of personnel. What are they doing there in the first place?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So I fired her the week before Thanksgiving.
Oh, man, Rodger.
Because in my young mind, that was the right thing to do. She was stealing from the company.
She did this. This is the consequence. Right. All other factors are irrelevant.
Okay. Months later, she knew she didn't
fight you on it.
No, there was no argument about that. And of course I said, look, we're going to pay you until whatever, the end of the year, whatever we did. Okay. Months later, I ran into her, and all she said was, it was just very simple. She just said, I know you did what you thought you had to do, but it sure would have been better if you hadn't fired me before the holiday. Okay. Bam, young guy out of business school. We never had that conversation in business school.
Where was that focus group?
Right. And I thought to myself, that is so right. And that was the kind of beginnings of compassion and the beginnings of a real desire to have employees who were content, who through that contentment would offer customer service.
Yeah.
Not through training, not through scripting. It would just come out of them because they liked working there, right? So anyway, I realized you're so right. I should have waited until the first of the year and said, look, I've known since before Thanksgiving, but I know the end of the year is tough to get through. We're going to give you a couple of weeks severance pay, but we know you've been stealing from the company. And for us, we only had one person working in each shop. So we had to have absolute trust in them or it wasn't going to work. So it was just like not working for us, not working for you. But there are places where you're valuable somewhere, just not here in that setting.
Yeah.
I just need to approach it differently. And it was a great lesson to learn. So I go to Pennsylvania, right? What's the first thing I find out about Pennsylvania, right? There's a half a dozen employees who should not be working there, right? Because they were sort of in a culture of contention, right? There was contention in every shop.
They come to work
between managers and employees.
And they're just butting heads all day, every day with somebody.
That's negative energy.
Yeah.
And that negative energy, I don't care if you smile at a customer or not when they come in. That leads
to screaming at each other in front of your customers.
True. But that was the exception, okay?
Where was that coming from?
But the negative energy existed every day.
Right. Sure.
And customers feel that. And decisions are based on that too. Like, when you're deciding, oh man, I leaned over this car and I scratched this guy's car and I'm not going to say anything. Right? Instead of, I need to go right out there, bring them in, show them this and say, how can I fix this for you? Because I screwed up. That culture didn't exist. And so that was the hardest part because there were, like I say, at least half a dozen, let's say combinations that needed to be changed. And the only way to change it was somebody had to go and somebody had to stay. And you have to sit down with people like Dave, who's just saying, we're busy right now. We can't let go of anybody. I'm like, yeah, but we're not going to be busy 2 years from now because those guys are never coming back. The customer,
the paradigm of we can't afford it, but we can't afford not to.
Exactly.
That kind of
exactly.
Yeah, push and pull.
And once again, it was seriously a little bit like Mosiah and Alma. Some of your listeners won't understand that. But, Alma went to the king and the king said, this isn't really my deal. If you feel that way, you better take care of it.
Right. Yeah.
And so
the boss who knew what he was good at and he knew what the other guy was really good at. And he said, that's Alma's deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And he basically said, then that's going to be your deal.
Yeah.
And again, very, very difficult to let people go. Always really difficult. But here's one of the things I'll say about that. In my years of interacting with business owners, the one thing I found out, and this exists at the mega corporate level and it exists at the family-owned business level, right? People work themselves up to get angry about something before they let people go. They want to feel justified instead of right. It's right for everybody, right? I mean, I'd bring people in that weren't cutting it, okay? And I would just say, hey, you know what? Here's the job, and this is how it needs to work for us. And maybe that doesn't work for you, or maybe it doesn't. I just haven't explained it correctly, right? But if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean anything except that maybe we're not a good match for each other. And if you feel that way, let me know. We'll give you some time to go out and find something that you really feel like you'll be happy at every day. We don't want you to be unhappy.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Let's find where you fit better.
Yeah, but that was a lesson that, took some time too. And hey, I'm the new guy in town, right? And now I look like the enforcer. Right. And people want to blame the wrong person because I'm just out being the enforcer. And you have to explain, no, you know what? Because you want everybody who stays behind to understand you really care about them. And the reason you're doing this is so they can all be happier, so that our customers can be better served. And anyway, that was probably the hardest thing, was creating that culture of, well, let's just boil it down to employee contentment leading to customer satisfaction. And I'll tell you how they feel contented, and that is they feel loved.
It's as simple as that, isn't it?
It is.
That's what it boils down to.
And believe me, Dave and Cindy were not huggers.
Did you ever convert them? Because you are a hugger.
Yes.
You converted them into hugging.
Yeah, I did.
That's fantastic.
I occasionally hugged both of them. I hugged a lot of employees. And again, it was about them feeling cared about. Can I share one little situation?
Please.
So one of our technicians, now he was a senior technician. He was good. Okay. And so it's not somebody you want to lose. So hopefully I'm telling you some of this just like purely out of this culture that we tried to establish. Shop manager calls me and says, hey, this guy just found out his 6-year-old son has brain cancer. He just called me from the hospital and said, what are we going to do? I said, what did he mean by that? Well, I think he meant how much sick time does he have? How long can he stay with his kid? Right? So spontaneously, I said to the shop manager, not even asking Dave, but Dave supported it after the fact. I'm not sure if we'd had a conversation. It wouldn't have been a very long conversation. But spontaneously, I said to the shop manager, you call him and you tell him whatever it takes, however long it takes. He worries about his kid, not about his job. He's getting paid, however long it takes. Not vacation, it's not sick days. It's taking care of him, right? So that got made. Now, we had some really good kind of junior level executives, right, who immediately kind of came in. And they were the operations guys, to be fair, okay? They were operations, Brian and Kirk, right? Mm-hmm. They said, Rodger, now everybody's going to know, and everybody's going to find an excuse for us to pay for them being off, right? Because it's still pretty fresh. We're still working through all this stuff. And I said to them, no, you know what everybody's going to know? Everybody's going to know if a disaster happens to them, they're going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And when another company comes and says, I'm going to give you another $1 an hour, they're going to know that might be $1 an hour, but they will never stand behind me if something like that happens. And I think that's true too. You were there after the fact and sensed what the feelings were among the employees. And I think most of them felt that way.
Well, and the translation to that, not only did you have people that chose to be there, but like you said, it transcended to the customers. I mean, we were known as the ones who just took care of people. We just took care of customers.
The purchasing company, like I said, it was an international company, a large company that also happened to own the largest glass company in America. And they bought us and they came into town for the kind of transition meeting. We invited all of the employees and their wives, anybody who wanted to come to hear about this, because frankly, the company that was owned by the purchasing company was sort of the enemy.
The competition.
Yeah.
The bad guy, the boogeyman.
And several of our employees had come from them because they had really bad employee practices. So they were concerned about that. Now, I'll tell you two things about that meeting, right? One was that the CEO of this company, who was kind of the operating CEO of American operations for the purchasing company, okay, he said to me personally, I want my guys to act like your guys and I want my guys to look like your guys. Okay? Never happened.
Are you willing to do what we did to make that happen?
No.
Not a chance.
Okay? But here's another thing that happened that very night. Okay. I went in, I hope this is okay. I went into the bathroom, right? And I am in a stall with the door closed. All right. And I hear two guys come in. Okay. Two of the guys. I don't know their voices. By that time we had 100 employees and I didn't know every voice. So I wasn't sure who the guys were. Okay. But they got into a conversation about, wow, what about this, man? How these guys that are buying it. Now, like I say, they were familiar with them. Okay. One guy says, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe they won't make me cover up all my tattoos when I come to work. And the other guy says, yeah, maybe I'll be able to grow my hair long again. Right? And they left. Okay. And later I ran into Kirk, who was our director of operations. Right. And I said, I got to tell you about this conversation. And I told him about it. And he says, oh, God, they just don't get it. And I'm like, no, Kirk, this is totally positive. This is the greatest thing those guys could have said, because what one guy was saying was, I want to work here so bad, I will cover my tattoos every day when I come to work. And another guy was saying, I want to work here so bad, I will cut my hair to work at this company. I said, Kirk, you couldn't have heard a better thing than that.
Yeah. What a testament to what we have done here.
That they wanted to work there, made personal sacrifices.
Absolutely.
Because they wanted to work there.
That's how important it was, because they knew they were being taken care of.
Yeah.
Take care of people, love people, and you're a spiritual guy. So continue to follow that spirituality, I guess.
Yeah. And another thing is, they know they're loved and they're willing to make personal sacrifices if they know they're loved.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so we did have some, from the top, we wanted our customers to be served the way they should be, right?
Yeah.
So we tried to develop a culture that would do that, right? So sure, we had some rules. We said, look, we don't want you to present yourself in a way that might make a customer uncomfortable, with you.
Yeah.
We know you. We know you personally. We know you as a person and love you, and we know you're good.
Yeah.
But the way you present yourself to someone who doesn't know you could possibly put off a customer. So why don't we just put our best selves forward?
Yeah.
And they made those sacrifices.
And we're going to have hair this way and clothes this way and clean pants. And this is how we're going to present ourselves. Because, and it's not about if you wear earrings, you're a bad guy. It's not about if you have long hair, you're a bad guy. That's not what it was about. It was about this is our face. This is what we're going to present. We're going to keep our yard clean because, generally that says something about how we feel about the inside and the way we treat your car because we keep ourselves polished this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Man, Rodger, you have the best business stories.
I got to tell you one more before we go.
I love it.
One more.
Please, give us your best one.
I've been there maybe a month. And I'm immediately called to serve on the High Council of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Harrisburg Stake. Okay. So as a member of the High Council, I meet a lot of other people in the church that aren't even in my congregation. Okay. Sure. So I meet a guy who says, "No, nobody knows me because I've just moved there, right?" And it was a little surprising. I was called immediately to serve in that way. But somebody says, "Hey, what do you do?" And I said, "Hey, I work for Cindy Rowe Auto Glass." And he says, "You're kidding me." I said, "No, why?" And he says, "They're the worst." I said, "The worst? What happened?" And he said, "I took my car there, and I took it there 8 months ago, and it is still in that parking lot because I am never going to pick it up because they screwed it up so bad." This was Coleman. What was his first name? Anyway, he was spitting mad at Dave, right?
His car had been in the parking lot
for 8 months
in Harrisburg for 8 months.
Right.
And he was so mad that he was willing to just leave it there until finally Dave said, "Get this thing out of here. Fine." Or he would fix it.
Called him up and somehow made this guy feel better. I mean, he had obviously, this is kind of where customer relations were when we started.
Oh, my word.
And like I say, you have to give all the credit to Dave and Cindy, for a willingness to find the best ideas that all of us could agree on and incorporate those ideas. And for Cindy, man, she was Mother Cindy. She literally was the mother. And for her to be willing to kind of step back a little more. I still remember the first time she said, "I don't even know everybody's names anymore."
That was hard for her.
It hurt her.
Yeah.
It hurt her. And so they're the ones. I mean, sure, I brought ideas and energy and a lot of stuff, and it was just a privilege working with them because of their willingness to see a different vision from what they already had and to see that would make things better.
Amazing experience, amazing story. And I feel to this day very privileged for the opportunity I had to work and learn. I always joke that it was my executive MBA. I felt like I sat in meetings that I never would have sat in, and got to help make decisions that I really didn't know that much about because of the opportunity I had to be there. And I was just grateful for you and Dave and Cindy and Brian and Kirk and all the wonderful people that I worked for there. I just have totally fond memories of that experience and opportunity, and to be able to see the result of what you brought in terms of customer service, just amazing, just totally awesome.
Well, I'm glad you were there. We had a great time while you were there. Worst day of my life when you and Annie and the kids drove away in the moving van.
That was hard. That was a hard day. Well, Raj, thanks for coming in today. I sure appreciate you being part of this podcast, and I've had a really fun time talking to you.
You're welcome, and me too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you found this episode inspiring and helpful. I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to drop a line or comment below. Also, please take a minute to like and share today's episode. It will allow me to create more content and find more great guests to bring on the show. Thanks for joining us on the Socks and Soul podcast. See you next time.